Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Hennessy. I'm here to teach you how to solve systems of equations by substitution. There's a list of steps here that we need to follow in order to do this. The first is to make sure at least one of the equations is solved for y equals or x equals. The second is to substitute that expression into the other equation to replace that variable. Number 3, we'll solve that equation for that one variable. Number 4 says we'll substitute your answer into either starting equation to get the value of the other variable. Number 5 says we'll write our answer as POI, point of intersection, with x and y. So we've solved systems of equations before by graphing, and our answer is always the point of intersection. But there will be times on a test, quiz, or final exam where you aren't given a graph, and it will tell you that you must find this point of intersection algebraically. And remember, algebraically just means we'll be adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Nothing too scary. So looking at exercise number 1, our first step is to make sure at least one of the equations is solved for y equals or x equals. And here, both of them are, so there's nothing to do there. Number 2 says to substitute the expression into the other equation to replace that variable. So what I'm going to do is, since I know what y equals, I'm just going to take that expression and replace or substitute it in for that other y. So here's what that looks like. Instead of writing y equals, I'm going to write 2x plus 1 equals negative 3x minus 9. The next step says to solve that equation for that one variable. So all I have to do is solve for x. The first thing I'm going to do is add 3x to both sides. Okay, so when I do that, my negative 3x plus 3x, that goes away. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. We've been doing this sort of thing all year. This is not new. I'm just trying to get x by itself. My last step here is to divide, and x equals negative 2. Don't get excited. You're not done. Our answer has to be written as a point of intersection. So all we did was step 3. Step 4 says to substitute your answer into either starting equation to get the value of the other variable. So I have a choice here. I can do whatever I want. I'm just going to take this x equals negative 2, and I can put that in for this x here or this x here. It does not matter, whatever one you feel like working with. I'm going to choose to plug it into this equation right here, okay, just because I feel like it. So that would look like this. Y equals negative 3. No more x. I know what x equals, so I'm substituting that answer in. And when I type this whole thing into my calculator, I get negative 3. Okay? So now I know my x and I know my y. I want to get full credit here, so I have to write those together as a point of intersection. So my point of intersection, if I were to actually draw these out on a graph, is negative 2, negative 3. All right, so that's the first example. Let's go on to the next example, example number 2. So I've kept the steps here so that I can just follow them along, so I can make sure I don't miss anything. All right, you'll want to memorize these steps. They won't be given to you on a test or a quiz or an exam or anything like that, but it's just going to help so that we can refer to these and hopefully then memorize the steps to this. All right, so again, step number 1, make sure at least one of the equations is solved for y equals or x equals. We've got that done. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Step 1 is already done for us. Step number 2 says to substitute that expression substitute that expression right here into the other equation. So all I'm going to do is throw that in where I see a y. So this right here becomes 3x minus 4 parentheses negative 2x plus 6 equals 64. All right, so I just wrote this down, but I didn't write a y. I wrote my y equals part instead. All right. Step 3 just says to solve that equation for that one variable. I'll be solving for x. That means I'm going to need to distribute if you mess up your distribution, we won't get the right answer. So it's really important that you guys recognize here that negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. It's really important that you understand that negative 4 times positive 6 is a negative 24. Okay, if those things are difficult for you, you need to stay after school to practice them. They're very important. I'm going to combine my like terms, so I'm not doing any opposite stuff yet. Okay, so I actually did add these things together. And now it's just a two-step equation. I'm going to add 24 to both sides. So it's gone on that side. And I'll divide both sides by 11. X equals 8. Remember, we're not done. We are not done because after that, step 4 wants me to substitute my answer into either starting equation. Well, in this case, again, it doesn't matter which one I plug that in for. So, sorry, we're plugging this in for x, okay? But I can see it's going to be a lot easier to plug it into this equation right here, like way easier, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this 8 and I'm going to put it in for that x. Okay, so once I do that, I'll get my y. So y equals negative 2 times 8 plus 6. All right. So when I plug that into my calculator, again, that's all I do. I just type this into my calculator. It tells me that y equals negative 10. Okay, so that was step 4. Step 5 says to write as a POI. So POI, point of intersection, would be 8, negative 10. That's my answer. Okay. All right. On to example number 3. Again, I have the steps listed for us here so that I can make sure I don't forget anything. So here's our example number 3. Again, I need to make sure at least one of the equations is solved for either y equals or x equals. This time, it's not. So x is not by itself here, neither is y. Same deal. Y is not by itself here, and neither is x. I can do whatever I want. I could get this x by itself, I could get this y by itself, I could get this y by itself, or I could get this x by itself. So you have a choice here. So you have to decide what looks easier to you. And what looks easier to me is to get this y by itself. I'm pretty sure I can do that easily, quickly, with just one step. All I have to do is add this 10 to both sides. So that means y equals 3x plus 10. Remember, you can't actually add these things. They're not like terms. So that's what y equals. Okay, that was step 1. Step 2, substitute that equation into the other equation to replace that variable. All right, so I'm just going to take all of this and I'm just going to plug that in there for that y, because this is what y equals. So instead of writing y, I'm going to write all of that. All right, no problem. So that gives me this equation right here. That was step 2. Step 3 is to solve that equation for that one variable. Okay, so I'm just going to solve this equation for x. So I'm going to distribute that 5. This gives me Whoa, almost made a mistake there. That would have been bad. Yikes, yikes. So, okay, here's what I did. 5 times 3x, and then 5 times 10 is 50. I almost made a mistake. Yikes. Okay, so that should be 50, right? Because 5 times 10, 50. Okay, I'm going to combine my like terms. Remember, if I'm going too fast, you can pause this video at any time and rewind. I might be going too fast for some of you. So again, just take advantage of that. Pause, rewind. Okay, I'm trying to solve for x. I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides. There's no shame in typing this in your calculator. This would be -1 minus 50. I know that it's -51. And divide both sides by 17. And when I do that, I get -3. X equals -3. Remember, we're not done. We are not done, but this is good. So now I can substitute that answer into either starting equation to get the value of the other variable. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I could plug it in for this x or this x or even this x. Okay, so this is really a starting equation. I just rewrote that starting equation. So again, doesn't matter which one. I could do this one or this one or this one. This looks pretty easy to me, so I am going to definitely just plug my x into this equation. So y equals 3 times -3 plus 10. Okay, all you have to do at this point is just type that into your calculator to get your answer for y. Y equals 1. Okay, so I'm not done. All right, I substituted my answer. Now I need to write as a point of intersection. So my POI is -3, 1. Okay. So now we would like you, Miss Eisenman and I would like you to please try exercise number 4 on your own. We will check that in class and go over all of this in class. And we are just going to practice these types of problems. All right, so remember, if you have any questions, feel free to stay after with us. Otherwise, we will see you in class. Have a great day.